I will be always beginning with my first finger. For example, here's a C major arpeggio using notes C, E, G in all the different octaves. I will be using fingers 1, 2, and 3, with the fifth one on the last note, on the last C. Here it is in a fast tempo. You can also play a C minor arpeggio. For that, you need to substitute E with E flat, the black key. You can also play many other arpeggios from this note. For example, you can play an arpeggio which outlines A minor chord, but you still begin on a C. The notes would be C, E, and then A. You use fingers 1, 2, and 4. Here it is faster. You can change E and A to E flat and A flat and get an A flat major arpeggio. Again, we begin on C. C also appears in other chords, for example F major and minor chords. We will begin on C again and we will play C, F and A. Then later we will substitute A for A flat and play that to outline F minor arpeggio. Here is F major. F minor. That covers most of triads that are possible with the C. A triad is a 3-note chord. A lot of chords are made using 4 notes. That's where you add the 4th dissonant note to the basic triad. For example, we can add a B flat to C major arpeggio. That makes a C 7th chord. For that you need to use 4 fingers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Incidentally, this C7th chord likes to resolve into F major. You can also make other chords, other 7th chords possible with this note. For example, C natural is present in A flat 7th chord. It's also present in D 7th chord, and it's present in F 7th chord. Starting from C, this is A flat 7th chord. You use notes C followed by E flat and G flat and then A flat. Here are the notes of F 7th chord: C, E flat, F, and A. And finally, the last possible 7th chord, D major 7th. C followed by D, followed by F sharp, followed by A. There is also another 7th chord. It's called a diminished 7th. You take a diminished triad from C, C, E flat, G flat, and then finally the 7th which you add to it is called B double flat, which is really the same note as A natural. Still using 1, 2, 3, 4 as fingers. And finally, the last chord that I will perform is another triad which you don't hear very often. It's called augmented triad. All the notes in this triad are major third apart. Starting from C, they would be C, E, and G sharp. There's no standard fingerings for these, for this one particular, for those augmented triads. But in this case, I chose to use 1, 2, 4 because it feels natural. Perhaps for a different augmented triad, you can try 1, 2, and 3. Here's a good example of a real piece of music that incorporates a big number of arpeggios. So really, this piece which I'm about to play is a succession of harmonies, some connected by scales, that take us from beginning to end. But those harmonies, those chords, are broken. And so on. This piece is a piece by C.P. Bach, one of J.S. Bach's children, and it's called Solfegietto. Most of the time it's just one line of music distributed between two hands. I will call out the name of arpeggio as we go through it slowly. We begin on E flat, then go down to C, and then go back up, ascending through C minor arpeggio. C minor is the key of this piece. C minor. G major. C minor again. Scale that connects. C minor. G major. Back to C minor. A connecting scale. C minor. F minor. B flat major. E flat major. Now we succeed going through different inversions of seventh chords. This is a D seventh chord. That takes us to G minor. D major. G minor again. Connecting scale. D major again. G minor. A G minor arpeggio. This is a C seventh chord resolved into C minor. This is a G seventh chord. C minor arpeggio again. C minor. G major. C minor again. Scale that connects. C minor. G major. Back to C minor. Connecting scale. C minor. F minor. B flat major. E flat major. Now
review the D arpeggios with you. D is for descending. Have you practiced descending arpeggios often? First, let's talk about the triads, 3-note chords. A D major consists of D, F sharp, and A. We're going to use alternating hands to play the D arpeggio. augmented or D plus. D, F sharp, A sharp. So we raise the fifth tone a half a step. D diminished, D, F, A flat. We lower the third and the fifth tones. Now four-note chords. D sixth, using the sixth tone of the D scale, B. D seventh, one whole step down from the name of the chord D is C. D, F sharp, A, C. D seventh. D minor seventh. D, F, A, C. D diminished seventh. D, F, A flat, C. It's like an F minor chord with a D. Diminished seventh. D diminished seventh. An application of the D arpeggio is in the Blue Danube Waltz by Johann Strauss Jr. We'll use a D major arpeggio ascending the entire keyboard. And then we'll use an E minor seventh arpeggio descending the entire keyboard. And then we'll use an E minor seventh arpeggio descending the entire keyboard. Blue Danube Waltz. arpeggios built on E. That's E for easy. First, let's play an E major scale. A chord is built on the first, third, and fifth of the scale. You have now played an E major scale. You have now played an E major chord. If you're trying to figure out the chord, you take 2 whole steps between the first and the third tones. Half is a whole, another whole, 2 whole steps. E major. We're going to alternate hands. Left hand, right hand. Quicker using the damper pedal. Next, in E minor. We lower the third from G sharp to a G natural. The 6th tone of the E scale is C sharp. So when we play an E major 6th, these are the notes. Major 7th. The D sharp is the 7th tone in the E scale. You lower 1 whole step down from the name of the chord to get the 7th tone, not the major 7th, but the 7th. Minor 7. The 5th tone, a half a step. It's a B sharp or C natural. E diminished. You lower the 3rd and the 5th tones. E, G, B flat. adding a major third below the name of the chord, you get a more modern sound. Doesn't this? We will play G major arpeggio first. G minor. G sixth. G major seventh. G seventh. G sixth. G major seventh. G seventh. G augmented. diminished seventh is like a G with a B flat minor chord. The right hand versus the left hand. A minor. A sixth. A seventh. A major seventh. A minor seventh. A augmented or A plus. A diminished. Play Beethoven's Fur-Elise with A minor arpeggios and E major arpeggios.
this time, B major, and its parallel neighbor, B minor. Well, they're not so much different from the C major arpeggios, except that you do use some black keys. But you do start on the white key, so therefore the fingering is still the same. 1 on B, 2 on D sharp, and 3 on F sharp. So in slower tempo it looks something like that. This is a B major arpeggio. In a faster tempo. To play B minor arpeggio, all you need to do is, of course, change D sharp to D natural, and you would still keep the same fingering. You can play it faster yourself. Well, these are the two basic arpeggios in the key of B, major arpeggio. The pedal was added for a bravura effect. Passage in both hands. This is a B major arpeggio. The pedal was added for a bravura effect. Well, for a B minor arpeggio, there's a good example in classical literature from Franz Liszt. His rather famous B minor sonata. When the first subject enters in bar 32, there's a rather elaborate sequence of arpeggios, and the arpeggio in the left hand that opens is a version of a B minor arpeggio that I played, except that it does not strictly follow this pattern. More something like this. Something more elaborate. So, to put it in context, figure like that may support a melody. They rarely use the standard way of playing it. Often they miss out notes like this, which actually makes it sound better, but it's important to practice the standard version first, and later you can expand upon that. In this sonata you find so many different examples of all kinds of arpeggios. For example, a passage leading up to this first theme in bar 32 uses a different kind of arpeggio, which is shared between two hands. This is not a B minor arpeggio, it goes through various other chords. That, for example, is an arpeggio shared between the right and left hand as it descends, and the sequence continues. And so on. That are possible in the key of B. Here are just some examples of, for instance, you can add a major sixth and create a rather jazzy feel to it. The major sixth would be the G sharp you played with your fourth finger. In a minor key, it would sound like this. also, of course, the dominant 7th chord on B, the very important chord, you would still use the 1, 2, 3, 4 finger in the 7th is the A natural. And you can make it into a minor 7th chord. Then there are a couple more, for example a diminished chord, which we already heard on C. The notes are C, D, F and G sharp. Here is a possible example from, actually let's go back to Liszt Sonata, there is an example of that arpeggio. A rather climactic statement in bar 43 there. What happens is the left hand leads melody in the bass, while the right hand breaks out in this rather climactic gesture that descends from high D right there through B, G sharp and F, back to G, B, G sharp, F and so on. And finally we'll land on E flat as we arrive in the new key. Let's round up the showcase of B major with some jazz. Now in jazz what they like to do is alter a regular B major scale to some other more funky sounding scales. For example, there is a very famous dominant Lydian scale where you raise the 4th degree, E, to become E sharp, which is really the same thing as F. And then you lower 7th degree, A sharp to A, and it sounds like this. Now to play an arpeggio that covers all of those notes, you would need to play 7 different notes a third apart, and this is how it sounds. Some altered ways of playing a dominant Lydian scale there, so let me just take you through this slowly. We start on B, ascend through a regular B major triad, then we need to use the thumb again on A. And then the following notes are C sharp, E sharp or F natural, and then G sharp. And then we're back to B major. And something that I want to point out is that in fact some arpeggios would start on a black note, but in fact they would belong to the key of a white note. So we can start the B major on D sharp, still use the same fingering we would use if we started on B itself, the 2nd finger, and continue like this. Same goes for the F sharp. So make sure, if you know what key you're in, you use the appropriate fingering. Well, let's move on to the black key arpeggios. The general rule with black keys is that whatever key you're in, you have to work out where your white note is. Now, in the key of B flat, for instance, if you're in a B flat major, then you have B flat, D and F. That means that on the first white key that you have, you need to put your thumb. We start on the 2nd finger first, the thumb on D, 2nd on F again, and then the next B flat will be played with our 4th finger. Bend your thumb in again, on D, F, B flat, and so on. Finish on 2nd. In the case of B flat minor arpeggio, you have a D flat. which means that the first white key is F, and that is where our thumb goes this time. So third on D flat, thumb on F, and this time B flat always has the second finger. So a rather different case from white key arpeggios in major and minor. You do often change your fingerings quite a bit for the black key arpeggios, depending on what mode you're in, major or minor. Well, you can of course extend this to B flat 7th chords, which would simply require an extra finger, this time a third on A flat for a B flat 7th chord, fourth on B flat again, for a B flat minor 7th chord you would need still a third on D flat, once again thumb on F, and then you would use a second finger on A flat and third finger on B flat next time it comes around. Now D flat gets the fourth finger, and then this pattern continues. So in fact, something to remember that might make learning of those arpeggios easier is that once you land on your thumb, whatever white note it is in a given black key arpeggio, you can work out the rest of your fingers by going through the rest of the notes in that arpeggio. This is a B flat minor 7th arpeggio beginning from F. Arpeggios with a diminished chord in both hands. Now why don't we look at some literature again, and there's an example of not a very clear looking B flat arpeggio, but it's there. This one is from Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto No. 1, first movement. It's one of the beautiful themes where the main theme and so on is accompanied by a B flat minor arpeggio, which is put inside the texture like this. A flat major arpeggio, you have A flat, C, and E flat, which makes C the first white key, and that's where your thumb goes. Again, start with the second finger on A flat, and then the first finger, the thumb, will come on C. E flat gets the second finger again, and then the following A flat will be played with the fourth finger. In this case, not much changes. You still have a white key, which is, instead of C, becomes B natural, or in the key of A flat it is spelled C flat. Still with the thumb, same finger. Well, let's just add a seventh again. G flat. other diminished chord. A flat, B, D, and F. In fact, if you remember the B diminished chord, it used exactly the same notes. Except this time we start on a lower note, on A flat, and then we still get to B, D, and F. Well, there are quite a number of pieces that incorporate A flat major arpeggio, and the first example that I have is Bagatelle by Beethoven. This one is a Bagatelle in A flat, and it sounds something like this. This is a section that uses just the A flat arpeggio with a little mix-in from the dominant of A flat. Final passage from his etude, opus 25, number 1 in A flat major. It doesn't really matter what you're in, G flat major or F sharp major. On the piano it's all the same. Well, G flat major is the first key that has all black keys in its arpeggio, because the G flat followed by the third above the B flat and then the fifth above the D flat gives you nice black arpeggio, which means that you can treat it like another white key arpeggio. 1, 2, and 3. Another thing about this arpeggio is that if you do in fact start on another note of this same arpeggio, like a B flat or a D flat, because all the keys are black, you can in fact use the thumb on every first note. So, like we did with G flat, we used 1, 2, 3. If we start on B flat, we use 1, 2, and then the leap is greater, so we use 4. And then if we start on D flat, again it's 1, 2, and 4. 1 on D flat, G flat, B flat. Now, for instance, this is a good key to try to learn to improvise upon. Why don't you set up a simple going pattern like this? The left hand fingerings are 5, 3, 2, 1, and then 3, 2, 1 again. And then have a little simple tune on top of that. Arpeggio that we ended with, which is the dominant of G flat, of course. Of course, in the right hand, that could be something like that. And so on, as you enjoy the flight of improvisation. Well, of course, let's now move on to the minor and the seventh chords and the diminished chord. And why don't we play an augmented chord just for fun? Here's a minor chord. Finally, we do get a white key in this arpeggio, so same rule applies. For a diminished chord, you would use in that one were F sharp or G flat, followed by A, C, and E flat. All you have to do for the regular seventh chords is to keep the same fingering, except changing C to C sharp and E flat to E. However, when you get from this minor seventh chord to a regular dominant seventh chord, which features the major triad in its bass with an added seventh, then you do in fact need to figure out alternative fingerings for this one. It would be very inconvenient if we kept the regular 1, 2, 3 fingerings for this one and then used 4 on the 7th, because it's rather hard to leap to the black key with your thumb. A little inconvenient, possible with practice, but why don't we use a different fingering instead? This time start on 2 followed by 3 and 4 on those black keys, and then like with any other black key arpeggio with a white key, use the thumb. So this one is an odd one out, something to remember, that for regular triad you use 1, 2, 3, like for any other white key, but when you do in fact add other notes from the scale, like the 7th, and that happens to be a white key, use the white key rule in the black key arpeggio. Is the next one on our list. And of course the E flat arpeggio has again both major and minor. The major version has G as the next white key above E flat, and then the B flat. So you would use the white key thumb rule. 4th on E flat when it comes again. And look again, we go to the minor key and we need to change the G to G flat. We have all black keys again, and that means you can treat this as another white key arpeggio. Now onto the 7th chords. The regular dominant 7th with the major triad in the base of it. All you're doing is adding another finger on D flat 3 and 4 on E flat. And then for a minor 7th chord, you end up having all black keys, which means that you use the regular 1, 2, 3, 4 fingering. Well, those are the only two all black key arpeggios, the G flat major and E flat minor. Well, let's look at an example from our classical literature, or should I say romantic literature. This one is by Rachmaninoff. Elegy in E flat minor, something he wrote when he was just 17 years old. In this case, the left hand plays rather low E flat minor arpeggio, which supports the theme above it, and this arpeggio is different from the one I demonstrated in that it skips every other note. Like I mentioned before, the composers usually would write a non-standard arpeggio for their compositions. So this one goes like that. An octave E flat followed by B flat, G flat, E flat, finally another B flat, and then a descent. Notice that I have to use completely different kinds of fingerings and hand positions. And this is the piece. Depends on how you choose to call it. And well, let's just finish with what we know. Both D flat major and D flat minor, or C sharp major and C sharp minor, are keys where, are arpeggios I should say, where the second note is the white key, so we start with 2 on C sharp or D flat, and we play next white key for major arpeggio, the E sharp or F natural, and for minor E natural without thumb, and then we continue. And then let's go down in the major. Here's an example where we ascend in a major mode and then descend in the minor mode. So look what happens. Sudden change of color there. And let's look at the 7th chords. Just add a 7th with our 3rd finger. And then let's descend using the minor 7th. So we change our F or E sharp to E natural. So this is what it sounds like. Well, final example would be from a piece by Anton Rubinstein, great pianist and a composer who lived in the 19th century. Here's a climactic point from one of his pieces titled Gondolier, and in this case he really uses piano like a true romantic instrument, with the pedal down and both hands breaking out in a C sharp major arpeggio. Like a true romantic instrument, with the pedal down and both hands breaking out in a C sharp major arpeggio.